Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for Fantasy Premier League content for the 2021-22 season. My name is Dan and today we are having another one of those 100 expert videos where we see what the more seasoned FPL players, the more engaged FPL players, what their moves are, what they're up to, and kind of use all that data to try and make some suggested transfers, try and figure out who the best captain is for the week and all things like that. Just seeing what everyone's up to and maybe we can learn a thing or two. I usually learn a lot from this video. This is my favorite video of the week to make. I know it's a lot of your guys' favorite video as well, guys. So if you do enjoy this kind of content, please do like the video. It is massively appreciated. And of course, we're on the road to 100k subscribers. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing if you haven't done already, that would also be hugely appreciated. Without further ado, let's meet the 100 experts for the week. So I asked on Twitter who wanted to get involved, FPL pundits, experts, veterans, podcasters, bloggers, every single type of FPL person in the world basically, and these are the very kind people who decided to get involved this week. Of course, if you do want to get involved, you fancy yourself as a bit of an expert, do follow me on Twitter at FPL Mate. But yeah, massive thank you to all the people who got involved today. Let's see what they did in very, very general terms. So this makes for kind of interesting reading because although 38% of the 100 experts are making a transfer, 40% are actually making 2 transfers. So it's actually more common for a seasoned FPL manager to be making 2 transfers than to be making 1 transfer this week. Whether that's using bank transfers, whether that's taking -4s, it doesn't really matter. Also 4% using 3 transfers as well, and 13% using wildcards this week. Only 5% of our 100 managers are not making a transfer at all this week. So as you can see, the play for this game week does really seem to be make lots of transfers, make loads and loads and loads of transfers. It's a big transfer week, much more of a transfer week than last week was. We get some of these weeks where people don't really want to make transfers. We get some weeks where everyone wants to make a transfer, and I feel like this is a very much a big transfer week, particularly with kind of the injuries that we are seeing going on. And another big thing is the Chelsea fixture swing that I'm sure you guys have your eyes very firmly fixed on. So this is the week for some transfers, but in general, who is making the transfers to who? In general, in the overall sense. So here is the data from every single transfer made up until the recording of this video. These are the most popular players transferred in overall among all FPL managers in the entire universe. Maybe not universe, I don't know. I think there's many FPL managers from other planets, but you never know. But here we go, guys. You can see that Alonso tops the charts here. We've got Sarr up there as well after his back-to-back returns. Antonio, still a very popular one to be bringing in right now. And then we kind of seen a few more of the, one more of the Chelsea attackers there as well. Rudiger, you can see there. Lukaku in there is another Chelsea option there. People liking the look of Cancelo. Bit interesting one ahead of that Liverpool fixture, but there we go. And we've got some other players in there as well. So these are the most popular players. You can kind of see that. So particularly towards the bottom, there's actually not been that many transfers made. Usually we'd expect even the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th most popular transfers at this point in the week, we expect kind of at least a couple of hundred people to have transferred in, even players that are slightly lower. And number 1, number 2, they should be about 300,000. But I think people are waiting a little bit because as of recording again, we are talking about a situation where there's lots of mid-week games to play. There's a lot of last-minute news around injuries, press conferences to come out and for people to find out a little bit more. So I do think people, although people are planning their transfers and I've got a lot of useful data here, it does seem that in general people are holding off of making their transfers just quite yet, just waiting a little while. But anyway, let's look at who out of these players who are popular among experts as well. Is there any overlap? Well, yes, there is actually a lot of overlap this week. So no surprise to see Alonso, Rudiger, really popular transfers in even among experts. We've got to get in on that Chelsea defence. It has to be done with this fixture swing. We've got Lukaku and Cancelo also very popular. Saka, Anasan Maximan, Rafinha popular as well. And yeah, in general, there's a lot of overlap here, but there are a few players that are not being brought in by any of our 100 experts this week, and those 3 players are Benrahma, Salah, and Doucouré. So out of our, there's so many transfers going on when you consider that out of our experts, many of them, well, most of them are using more than 1 transfer in 1 week, and yet still no one has been bringing in Benrahma, Salah, or Doucouré. I feel like Benrahma and Salah are players who you kind of probably, if you already have them, keep them. If you don't already have them, probably don't worry too much about bringing them in. To be fair, Benrahma I wouldn't mind bringing in personally, but this video is not about me. And Doucouré is kind of a bit of a weird transfer because Obviously, Everton are about to play Manchester United. You could say a similar thing about Salah. He's about to play Man City, a very difficult defence there. So you guys obviously should have Salah already, but if you don't, now is probably not the 1 week to get him in. You know, maybe wait for a different week on that one. I mean, I don't know who you're bringing it, taking out for him, but yeah, Salah is probably not a player you want to be bringing in this week, but definitely next week if you don't have him already. But guys, let's have a look at the expert transfers out. So, transfers out, here we have Luke Shaw at the very top of the list, completely uncontested really in that regard. 34 out of our 82 managers that are making transfers this week will be transferring out Luke Shaw. You can kind of understand why, a combination of potential injury and, well, really disappointing performances for a player that's 5.5 million. It's a lot of money. Now, I do want to warn you guys that I do think that Shaw could make it in time for the weekend. He could be fit and ready to go. I think we want to wait for final confirmation on that one. But even if he is fit, there's so many reasons to sell him, particularly if you're very keen to get that Chelsea defender in your team. Shaw seems like a very obvious sacrifice for that. Trent Alexander-Arnold, a lot of our experts are also opting to remove him. Some are opting to keep him for the long term, but also some people want to remove him because they know that he is not going to be available for the Man City game this weekend. That's a very unfortunate injury for Trent Alexander-Arnold, and we're still yet to find out the full extent of the injury. So I can kind of understand why people are at least thinking about removing him from their teams. And then after that, we've kind of got Jota there. We've got Ronaldo there, which Ronaldo might surprise you a little bit more, but there's a very obvious transfer move. Ronaldo to a certain other forward. I won't say who, but I'm sure you probably can guess. And then after that is pretty much a load of pretty random players that I guess people have knocking about in their teams that they want to get rid of. Yeah, there's not too much sense after that one. Kind of all kinds of random players that are being removed there. But you know, maybe you resonate with one of the players you see further down the list. But we are really looking at transferring out Shaw, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jota, or Ronaldo for this game week. These are the big four to be transferring out. It is pretty clear to see, particularly Shaw and Trent Alexander-Arnold. A straight swap from one of them or both of them for one or two Chelsea defenders, and then we're looking at Jota to maybe a different midfielder. Maybe you need to free up a little bit of funds. You need to take Jota down to a cheaper midfielder, and then of course the Ronaldo situation. Who's Ronaldo getting transferred in for? Out for. Let's have a look at the transfers in for our experts. And here they are. You can see already, number 3 on the list, Lukaku, pretty much lining up there with Ronaldo's numbers there. So, yeah, a lot of people are making the straight swap from Ronaldo to Lukaku. A lot of people think that, you know, Southampton's a slightly easier game than Everton. Maybe Lukaku outscores Ronaldo this week. I completely understand we would want Lukaku's for the slightly longer term, but yeah, there seems to be a lot of people on the fence here. Who should we go for? Should we go for Lukaku now, or should we wait one more week and give Ronaldo one more go against Everton? That's kind of up to you guys, but a lot of people are pulling the trigger, going for that Lukaku move in for Ronaldo. But aside from that, guys, you can see the two top players on the list are clear, the clear favourite players to bring in, and they are Chelsea defenders, and there's no surprise there. 29 transfers in for Alonso, 28 transfers in for Rudiger. We add the 9 transfers in from Azpilicueta as well, and we are in a Chelsea extravaganza in terms of players being brought in. And you know, if you want to add Lukaku in there as well, but what I really want to focus on is the fact that out of the 82 managers making a transfer this week who aren't wildcarding, who aren't rolling the transfer, look how many of them are bringing in a Chelsea defender. Now, it's not all of them, but it is the vast majority. So we're seeing a very clear pattern here that this week is the week to bring in a Chelsea defender. Whether you want to bring in 1 or 2, that's kind of up to you. I think 1 is probably going to be enough, because we don't want to be using too many transfers, especially if we're not on wildcards or anything like that. But going for Alonso, going for a Rudiger, these are both two excellent moves. I'm going to explain a little bit in a moment which out of the two I prefer, and you know what reasons you might go for each of them. But a quick look at some of the other players aside from all those Chelsea defenders. We have got Rafinha in there as well. So maybe if you're looking for a nice midfielder for the week, maybe you want to take out Jota or someone else. Rafinha is actually the player of choice to bring in, and I like that for a longer term move as well. Perhaps if you are planning a wildcard in game week 8, you could think about going for Sarr. You can see that he's got 2 transfers in there. Alain Saint-Maximin, you can see he's got 2 transfers in as well. Maybe if you fancy a kind of a little bit of a punt. But for the long term, it does look like Rafinha is the guy to go for. Leeds have some great fixtures. Rafinha seems to be their best attacking output. To be honest, I think Rafinha is their best player, their best fantasy player, full stop. Anyway, best player on paper, best player in fantasy, best player in real life. He's just the one to go for, and he's a really good price as well. So Rafinha, I can see the interest there. And Saka is there, interestingly, as well. Maybe having a look at Cancelo there as well. And then, a few other random players. Gallagher, I say random, they're all good picks, really. Gallagher, Jimenez, Wood there as well. Wood for a 1-week punt for a few people. I know about that. So, yeah, guys, what I always say is this list that you see in front of you right now is a really good watch list, a really good Game Week 7 watch list. So take a screenshot, whatever, have a look through these players. Who do you like the most out of these players you see in front of you? And you're pretty much, you're pretty much good to go. All of these are good transfers to bring into your teams this week. So you can't really go wrong if you're targeting a player out of these 12, or perhaps you've already thought of one of these players and you are kind of wondering, is that a good player or not to go for? They're on the expert list. They're on the expert transfers in list. So at least 2 experts have transferred them in out of the 100 that I surveyed this week. So it's a good sign. It's probably a good sign for you. But let's suggest some transfers for you guys. So first of all, let's talk about some Chelsea defenders to bring in. I think that's kind of what we're kind of edging towards this week, aren't we, in Game Week 7? So really, we're looking at taking out Shaw or Trent Alexander-Arnold, and that's really going to depend on the severity of each of their injuries, which one you go for, because Shaw, you probably don't want long-term, but, perhaps he's available in the short term. Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's probably not available in the short term, but long-term, you definitely do want Trent in the long term, don't you? So yeah, bit of decision making there for you guys. I'll leave that to you, but definitely one of Shaw or Trent Alexander-Arnold looks like the play to get rid of if you are looking to bring in a Chelsea defender, unless of course you've got money banked, or someone else like a Digne or something like that, or you've got a little bit of money in the bank and you can upgrade one of your weaker defenders up to a Chelsea defender. Maybe you could do that, but we are really looking at Alonso, Rudiger and Azpilicueta. And you will notice, guys, in this video, Christensen has not been mentioned. I know a lot of you guys have been asking me, look, I don't want to spend all that money on a Chelsea defender. Can I just get Christensen instead? The answer is pretty much no, unless you absolutely have to. No, it's better to spend a little bit more money. We've got a very nice long run of fixtures that are really, really good for Chelsea defenders. Capitalised on that by spending a little bit of money, getting that defender who is nailed on, or getting that defender who is likely to get attacking returns as well, to take full advantage of it rather than trying to cut corners there. That's definitely what I would recommend. And the experts are, they're going the exact same way. I think only one person was transferring in Christensen this week compared to the numbers of Alonso, Rudiger, Azpilicueta. It's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And there's that pattern exists for a very good reason. So Alonso is the player you want to go for if you want those big returns, but maybe you kind of get the idea at one point that Alonso may be dropped or rotated at some point or another, but Alonso is capable of those really nice attacking returns, particularly against some of the weaker teams, and Chelsea are playing some very weak teams in the near future, so Alonso is a fabulous pick for that. Now, if you can't quite afford Alonso, you can also go for Rudiger, who is not quite as good for attacking returns, but he does seem to have nailed down that left centre-back position for Chelsea, and I don't think he's going to go anywhere the whole season. I think arguably Rudiger is one of Chelsea's most nailed on players. He's definitely their most nailed on defender, and I include the goalkeeper in that. I include Mendy in that demographic as well. And finally, we've got Azpilicueta, which is kind of an interesting one because he's slightly more expensive than both Alonso and Rudiger, but I know a lot of people do prefer Azpilicueta. We've got Reece James is going to be out for at least a few weeks, so Azpilicueta potentially playing on the right wing, right wing back side, where he's going to be delivering a lot of good balls in. We know he's got good delivery. We know he's got good passing. So Azpilicueta has thrived in that position many times before, and we kind of expect that to continue a little bit. But Reece James is going to come back at a certain point. Sometimes Azpilicueta isn't going to play there. Hudson-Odoi is going to play in that position as well, and Azpilicueta either plays sort of right centre back, or maybe even is potentially rotated. Occasionally, it does happen very, very occasionally there for Azpilicueta. Although there's definitely less risk now that Reece James is out. So yeah, plenty to think about there, that's for sure. But yeah, that's kind of what I'd be thinking. Shaw or Trent Alexander-Arnold, who do you prefer? Which description of those 3 Chelsea defenders did you like the sound of the most? Go for that one. But if you think a Chelsea defender is not the move you want to go for, maybe you've already got one, or maybe you just want to look elsewhere, It's up to you guys, but there are some other suggestions we could do. So we could do Ronaldo to Lukaku, straight move, very easy, frees up a bit of money in the bank. So if you're doing 2 transfers this week, like many of our experts, you could do Ronaldo to Lukaku. That frees up a little bit of money in the bench, in the bank. Maybe you can use that money to upgrade one of your defenders to a Chelsea defender. So you can do a nice double move like that. Maybe you want to move out Jota. If you're going to move out Jota, then Rafinha and Saka are the popular buys of the week. Definitely have a look at both of those players. Saka seems really nice and nailed in the Arsenal team, and you know he is one of the better players for Arsenal, looking really good, constantly improving. You can say similar things about Rafinha, to be fair. So yeah, both of those really good picks to go for if you are looking to replace a midfielder, or in particular if you're looking to replace Jota, who is not expected to start against Man City, is expected to start on the bench, just with Firmino coming back into the team. So there are your suggested transfers. Let's have a look at captains finally. So for captains this week, we've actually kind of seen our biggest spread, I guess. There's quite a few different differentials. Now, I've listed the top 6 here, but there were a few people who, you know, you'll notice that these numbers do not add up to 100 exactly, and that's because there were a few people going for the odd punt, I guess, although there are some punty ones here as well. But let's talk about the big ones first. So the big ones are Lukaku and Ronaldo. I know Lukaku is slightly beating Ronaldo on 40 to 37%, but you know, they're pretty much in balance there. So I think either of those players, whichever one you so happen to have, and I doubt most of you are not going to have both of those players, but whichever one you have is probably the one to go for. That's a nice, easy captain decision for you. If you have Lukaku, go for Lukaku. If you have Ronaldo, you go for Ronaldo. If you have both, then, you know, flip a coin or something like that. I slightly prefer Ronaldo, but again, this video is not about me. But yeah, that's pretty simple. Both Southampton and Everton look to be similar in terms of defensive capabilities. I think, you know, both of those 2 top players have a really good chance of getting some good FPL points. We've got Antonio there at home against Brentford. We did see Brentford kind of, you know, showing some vulnerabilities against Liverpool, conceding a couple of goals finally. So we think West Ham could probably do the business there. And if West Ham are going to do the business, it is going to be Antonio involved. So you can see why 12% of our experts are going to go for Antonio. So those are the big 3. And then after that, we are talking differentials, really. We are talking about punts and kind of risk, far more risky moves, I guess. So we've got Jimenez against Newcastle. Newcastle's a very weak defence. Jimenez starting his goal-scoring extravaganza once again, hopefully, fingers crossed. Alonso against Southampton. Maybe you fancy going for a Chelsea defender. You know, we're hyping up Chelsea defenders so much. Why not captain one if you fancy a real differential? And then a couple of people are backing Salah against Man City. You know, Salah at home, there is a kind of unwritten rule in FPL where if Salah's at home playing a home game, you always got to consider him, and a lot of people are considering him against Man City. It's not a great fixture, but it is a great player. So yeah, and I will mention the other 1%ers, the 1% captain picks that I saw amongst the 100 experts. So one person's going for Rafinha for their captain, one person is going for Jamie Vardy for their captain, one's going for Chris Wood for their captain, and finally one's going for Bruno Fernandes. So there's a few players in there that are hardly talked about at all, but some people like to go for a random punt now and again, particularly if your season is not going amazingly. Maybe you're tempted to take a punt, but you know, the most popular captains are the most popular captains for a very good reason. So I do consider Lukaku, Ronaldo, and yeah, arguably Antonio as well, before you go too crazy with having a look at some of those other players, guys. And there you go, that's the captains. Thank you so much for watching today, guys. I really do appreciate all your support recently. If you wouldn't mind leaving a like, I would really appreciate that as well. And do subscribe as we embark on the road to 100k. Come on, we got to do it. We got a while before we'll get there, but one step at a time, right? One step at a time. Guys, there is going to be a kind of part 2 of sorts of this video, because I'm going to be doing a wildcard video a little bit later on today. It's going to be a double upload day. I know, busy, but in a game week like this, when so many people are talking about wildcards as well, I want to make sure I'm talking about wildcards too and trying to help you out in that regard. So yeah, stay tuned for the wildcard video coming up soon. It might already be out by the time you watch this video, to be fair, but we'll see. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.